JR D-Lab. On the bench this morning, I have a vintage Sonny JR amplifier. This is a push-pull 6L6 amp that runs 4 speakers. It belongs to a harp player. The issue is the volume is dropping and at times distorted. So let's check it out and see what's going on. So here it is, the Sonny JR. These are a hand-built amplifier. I don't know if the guy still produces them, but this player is the original owner. You can see the line up here. It's very well built on an eyelet board. Runs a pair of 6L6s. It's got pile drivers for the speakers. So it's just a basic design, kind of like a Fender Princeton style. However, this one is cathode biased with this big old guy, which is a slide tap type resistor. So let me get around the scope. Let's take a look at the output and see if we can determine why his power is dropping out. Alright, here we are, initial test time. Got the scope hooked up across the speakers. I'm injecting with my leader audio generator just so we can take a look at the output and make sure it's not clipped or nasty looking. Here it is. Alright, you can see she looks pretty clean. The first thing I noticed though, I'm going to bring the volume up a little bit, and after this we're going to switch to a dummy load so I don't irritate you with the sound, but I just wanted you to hear this. I'm going to bring up the volume. Now watch what happens when I rock the input jack slightly. Hear it? I also feel a lot of slop in the 1/4" plug that's going into the jack. So we're going to inspect that. Then I'm going to give it my typical tap test, see if we have any loose components, and then we'll play with the tubes and see if we have anything that's microphonic or dropping out. I've killed the shop lights so we can see activity on the scope a little bit better. Now I'm going to take and just rock this input jack and let's see what we're getting on the scope. So that does not look good. So any vibration or chord movement, you'd get that jumping around, right? So that is a source of distortion and possibly dropouts. Now, let's do the old tap test on the output tubes with my plastic wand and of course the preamp tubes. And let's see if we have anything that's sensitive. Okay, so I'll start with the preamp tubes. So they look pretty stable. Now let's go over to the output tubes. Same deal, we'll just tap on it. I'll give a little bit more drive on the scope. I've only had the amp on for a few minutes, but tapping on the tubes is not producing any kind of distortion. So I'm guessing right now our main problem is that input jack. So let's drop it out and take a look at it. So I've dropped out the input jack, and if you take a close look right in there, you'll see a little bit of green corrosion going up that shaft. So they roll this over to get their ground connection. So if you're getting some green corrosion in here, it could be interfering with that ground, and that's why we're seeing that noise. Take a look at the throat of her. So once again, I know this is hard to see, but normally the inner shaft here should be nice and chrome and shiny. This one's dull with a lot of skid marks in it. Probably, you know, due to the microphones being plugged in and out over the years. So this little switchcraft jack has served its purpose, but I'm going to change it out. Well, there's a new input jack installed. I've reconnected the audio generator through my 1/4" jack here, and there's no slop in the new jack like there was in the other one. Okay, here's the scope monitoring the output, moving her around. Absolutely no dropouts, no noise. So we've corrected that issue. Now I'm going to let it cook and take my magic wand, do the tap test and watch the scope and see if there's any other issues. So I've had the amp here cooking for about 15 minutes. Periodically I'm bringing up my audio, looking at the output. Looks nice and clean. But I do have something strange going on that I want to point out. So I'm going to get the camera right next to these output tubes and see if you can hear what I hear. Here we go. You hear that? It's like snap, crackle, and pop. It appears to be coming from these output tubes. So I'm going to let it bake a little bit longer, keep watching the scope, and see if these guys start becoming sensitive. So I really can't tell which one of these tubes is generating that noise. Here it is again. So what I'm going to do, I've got this little microphone. I'm going to set it right against the tube. And I've got it on the scope. So you can see my voice. So I'm going to be quiet and let's see which tube is noisy. Here we go. Going to the next tube. I'm going over to the rectifier tube. There he is. So the noise is coming from the rectifier tube. It's a JJ. Obviously it's seen better days. I'm going to change it out. So now we have a nice new old stock Sylvania 5U4 installed. There's the old JJ. And I do not hear any noise. Nice and quiet. So I'm going to let it cook some more. See what else pops up. So in case you're wondering, you'll see the tube lineup shows a 5Y3 rectifier feeding those 6L6s, and this amp has the 5U4 installed. That's something that the owner wanted to do since these 6L6s are power monsters. Wanted to make sure the rectifier tube could handle it, and it's been that way for about 10 years. No worries. Inspecting the base of the JJ5U4, I noticed this pin right here. You can see it's dull and the solder is all gray and pitted, so that is probably what we heard arcing. Alright, well that seems to have done the trick for the Sonny Jr. I initially thought it had bad output tubes, but I was being fooled by that rectifier tube. And that would also account for why he said it would play great for a few hours. It was getting hot and then the power levels would drop. That rectifier tube was probably failing, and that noise was an indication that it had a problem. So mission accomplished. The amp is stable and ready to go out the door, and I've got more projects to do. Hope you enjoyed it. See you again.